countries makes it very evident that agriculture has to play a significant role. But I want to change the perception of agriculture. It's not only this small-scale production agriculture that people might be thinking of and that young people perceive more as a drudgery than anything else. It's really the agri-food sector by and large. It's upscale and downscale opportunities in terms of processing, but also service provision, where we see at FAO very much within inclusive food systems, multiple opportunities for young people to engage. And these opportunities will and have to change the perception of young people in order to engage and to meet their aspirations. And we can talk about sexy agriculture, but also the term of agriculture came up, right? So we need to make agriculture more cool to young people to actually engage. So we need to rejuvenate the agriculture sector and the rural economy, and the question here is how this rural transformation can be more youth-friendly and actually create effectively more and better jobs for young people, and what are the skills that these young people actually require within this sort of rural transformation and the sectoral changes and the modernization of agriculture that are needed to really make them agents of change. And one answer is clearly, I referred to this before, is to make them an explicit priority in our programming, make them a cross-cutting issue that we explicitly address in agriculture and rural development efforts. And the second issue is that we need to much better work together, coordinate and collaborate together towards this addressing of the youth challenge. Now there are multiple processes, strategies and initiatives on the continent that constitute the basis for such closer collaboration. 2017 was the year of harnessing the demographic dividend through investment in youth. The last ordinary summit of the AU has actually coined 2018 to 27 as the African decade of technical, professional and entrepreneurial training and youth employment. So be with me on this one. The next decade will be about youth employment in Africa. The AU said so, and we all should be ready to act upon this. There's the Malabo Declaration with an explicit youth target. There is the CADEP results framework with a focus on youth. There is the African Development Bank with the Jobs for Youth in Africa strategy, where they want to actually create 25 million jobs until 25 and improve the conditions of 50 million others. There's the Enable Youth program, a 1 billion program by the African Development Bank, investing in this, especially on tertiary educated youth that were mentioned by David. The regional economic commissions are putting a lot more effort on youth in their strategies and programming. The G20 process this year under the presidency of Germany came up with a G20 initiative on rural youth employment. And I'm repeating this here because it's absolutely stunning. It's a G20 initiative on rural youth employment. If you have told me a year ago that the G20 will deal with employment, I would have been very happy. If you would have told me they're dealing with rural employment, I would not have believed you. If you would have told me they come up with an initiative on rural youth employment, I would have thought you are crazy, to be honest, right? It's unbelievable the level of prioritization that happens around the world on youth employment, and we all need to be ready to actually pick up on this. From an FAO perspective, we are engaging at global level. There's a global initiative on decent jobs for youth, which is a UN-wide initiative open to other partners, and FAO has been very active on this. This is one of two global initiatives that basically come with the SDG agenda in this fit-for-purpose strive to actually better collaborate and deliver together as the UN agencies. One of two. There was one on urbanization, one on youth employment. Again, a clear commitment to really explicitly address youth employment around the globe. And we have just launched half a year ago in Accra a new special program for FAO the regional special program on youth employment in agriculture and agribusiness, and Tony later on will tell you all about this. And this is to directly contribute to continental efforts that are manifested, for instance, in the 5-year priority program on employment, poverty eradication and inclusive development of the AU, and also Nepal's Rural Futures program. And we need to see how, despite all what has done already, we can actually better come together, collaborate and do more. So this workshop offers a great opportunity to share experiences, discuss and learn from each other how to scale up our efforts towards more systematic youth employment activities around the continent. But most importantly for me, it's how can we actually better coordinate efforts at country level in effectively addressing the youth challenge in a meaningful manner and at sufficient scale. So I look forward to an interactive workshop and the deliberations throughout these 2 days, and I thank you for your attention.
Dr. Piri, for the very kind invitation extended to me to give a keynote address. Keynote I usually think it's a sermon, so I wanted to go to the pulpit there. Because a keynote, you don't ask questions, you believe what has been said. Let me fall asleep through your facilitation. Let me also honor our sub-regional coordinator, Mr. Piri. I must add to what he has said that we have worked very, very well together. And I was telling you that if Africa was a big country and we were to look for ministers of Africa agriculture, I would put my vote on you for the great work that we've done. Thank you, Peter, for those kind remarks, particularly on the issue of employment. We share what is very common, that we can talk about youth activism, governance, and whatsoever. But I think the key will come on incomes and employment. Thank you for those remarks. Thank you, Dr. Kaunda. It's rare that we've got young people who are farmers. I think it's my first time to be sitting close to a young farmer, a doctor for that matter. Thank you, Tony, and welcome. As a focal point in youth employment, we will continue to have something in common. And welcome again, Mr. Sunga. Labour is quite critical in all that we are going to discuss as head of the union. CEO, we welcome you. Ladies and gentlemen, let me welcome you all. Those who are coming from outside the country to Zimbabwe. As has been mentioned, I arrived last night from a very successful meeting of ministers in Moscow, where we had close to 100 countries presenting on what they are doing in terms of the youth. I presented at the end because of the letter Z. And I did complain that next time they should start from Z going to A. You can imagine I had to listen to all of them. But however, it was very successful, including celebrations and in Sochi. Much is being done in terms of youth development, and previous speakers have already said it. And I'm thankful to FAO for organizing this very, very important meeting. I was wondering what SP3 meant, but thank you for the definition. I'll have to stay here to understand further about SP3. We in Zimbabwe have always given a lot of emphasis on rural development. In 1984, the then Prime Minister, who is now President, His Excellency Robert Mugabe, introduced what he called the Rural and Provincial Administration Act. What this act emphasized were three functions of the provincial governors. One was developmental, coordination, and also political. The developmental was meant to ensure that development percolates into the provinces, into the districts, etc. On the recognition that unless you develop the province and the districts, you have one of the biggest problems which faced the countries in North Africa. I'm sure you heard about what we economists called youthquake. Youthquake happened in North Africa when you had a large population of educated young people without jobs. What do? We saw that they caused really youthquake in those countries. So that recognition is very, very important, because as we all know, and it has been said, that Africa will be home to 38 of the 40 youngest countries by 2015 with a median population under 25 years old. This youth bulge can be a huge asset from an economic point of view. Producers will be producing goods and services that are demanded by a large population, and therefore it becomes a big asset in terms of both economic and social transformation. Countries with growing working age populations can potentially benefit to increase in productivity through higher savings and investment and overall economic growth. We all know, ladies and gentlemen, that this has been said clearly, and I think it was mentioned earlier on, that the Africa Buzz phrase now is harnessing the demographic dividend, in line with the Africa Union theme for 2017. And I congratulate the African heads of state for coming up with this very, very important theme which has been mentioned. Further, we should appreciate that the African Union Commission some years ago came up with what we have now called the Maputo Declaration. We in Zimbabwe, as you are aware, I was in the Ministry of Macroeconomic Planning before joining the youth. We have now introduced command agriculture, which is in line with the Maputo Declaration. The Maputo Declaration states that over 10% of our budget should go to agriculture, because as all economists have said, agriculture has more dividends than any other sector you can actually invest in. So if you combine the harnessing the demographic dividend of 2017 and the Maputo Declaration, this adds to what you have come for today. Further, the 2014 Malabo Declaration includes specific targets on youth engagement in agriculture, namely the creation of jobs in agriculture value chains. And I thank you for mentioning the issue of value chain. You know, when sometimes you talk about agriculture, we picture old women, old men with horse. Yes. When in fact I listened to a statement that was said by the former African Union Commission, Lady Madam Zuma. She said by 2030 we should ban all the horse, H-O-E, in case I misunderstood, all of them, to ensure that we create a new transformed agricultural system that does not lead to our young people running away from agriculture. One of the things why they're running away from agriculture is basically when they see the war there, again H-O-E, they run away. So I want to thank you for coming up with these conference organizers. So the policy initiatives now recognize the importance of agriculture as key to economic development in Africa, which is dominantly, Africa is agricultural. So, ladies and gentlemen, coming to Zimbabwe, Zimbabwe is relatively a young country. Over 40% of Zimbabweans are under the age of 24 years. And the challenges facing Zimbabwe disproportionately affect young people, yet the potential of these 4.8 million young people individually as a group is astonishing. So I've been saying our policies now should be youth responsive because of the population structures I've given you. So in this regard, increased youth livelihoods can drive economic growth. It can actually fight unemployment and reduce young people migrating to other countries in search of work. We have one of the largest diaspora per population in Africa. You go to each and every country, you find a number of Zimbabweans who have actually migrated in search of employment. So we need to reverse that trend by creating jobs. Current efforts, therefore, to harness the youth demographic dividend dovetails with the efforts which will be achieved through the SDGs 2016 to 2030, and also the African Union Commission, the Africa We Want, which is 2013 to 2063. Those two documents locate our Pan-Africa policies in terms of the youth. And at the regional level, we are currently implementing such a regional indicative strategic development plan. So my ministry has been driving a process of coming up with a strategic national youth policy that seeks to ensure that young people participate fully in all these sectors. We have taken a multi-sectoral approach, and agriculture is key in this aspect. As I've mentioned, ladies and gentlemen, the importance of training youth in agriculture production using contemporary systems I must emphasize, and modern information and communication is key. Actually, I visited all our training centers with about 46 of them. And one of my concerns was that we need to modernize agricultural training. We will be talking to advanced countries to see how we can expedite the industrialization process. We need also to provide land and mining rights to youth and youth participation in economic development. We need, ladies and gentlemen, to facilitate access to credit to promote youth participation in agricultural projects. I visited Kenya and I was very much impressed about their M-Pesa, which enables most of the young people to obtain credit for advancement in agriculture. Tanzania has a very effective special economic zones for the young people to ensure that those who invest in agricultural projects for the young people receive incentives. And South Africa's budget policy is youth responsive. Incentives are provided for companies that employ young people. So the thesis is that we need to enhance the attractiveness of rural areas to young people by improving their socio-economic infrastructure and access to services. What have we done as a country? 2 months ago, we launched the youth focal desks. I see that in Botswana, they already have youth focal desks to ensure that in each ministry, you have someone who is educated in terms of youth development and to unravel bottlenecks to successful implementation of youth policies. and also to empower young people at each and every ministry, given that the youth ministry is a cross-cutting ministry. So to date, we are pleased that the youth focal desk officer is here. The success story has been in the Ministry of Agriculture, where the youth activities have been mainstreamed, and we are participating in the Command Agriculture through the Youth Desk Office. Ladies and gentlemen, this is in line with Section 20 of our Constitution, which provides for youth coordination and mainstreaming and ensuring that the programs that are conducted by government are evaluated. Allow me, ladies and gentlemen, to share with you some few points in conclusion that we found quite interesting in our interface with a number of countries that are involved in youth development. I think the first one is that we have now created a youth bank. The youth bank was launched by Her Excellency some 3 weeks ago to promote youth development in ministries. The second one is that we have launched an industrial program for 46 of our training centers to ensure that they become industrial hubs and promote agricultural mechanization and industrialization. The third one is that we are looking at fiscal and monetary policies to provide the necessary incentives for companies that promote youth employment, particularly in the rural areas. We hope that your meeting here today with our officers here will add a lot of impetus in terms of providing decent jobs. In Zimbabwe, we need those decent jobs because over the years, our economy has been informalized, and we want to move to a situation whereby we create decent jobs. So I want to thank you once again for inviting me, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for choosing Zimbabwe for this very important meeting. We look forward to gaining a lot of lessons, particularly from the international community that is here. And may God richly bless you. I declare your meeting officially open. I thank you.
For these and other stories, visit our website www.263chat.com. Follow us on Twitter @263chat and like our Facebook page 263chat.